Hi everyone, how are you? Here we go on chapter 18. I want you to think about what we read last week, what you listened to and wrote about your discussion questions related to Ernie and being brave, but also Jeannie and how kind of Ernie usually paves the way for him and does things to make it a little bit easy for him, as an older brother would. And he's relating that to his Uncle Wood, who had died in the war. So think about what you wrote. Make sure that you read and write on the discussion questions. And here goes chapter 18. I'm not going, Ernie repeated over and over again, his voice muffled by the face mask. He, Jeannie, and Tess trampled down the hill. Jeannie really didn't see what the big deal was and really wanted Ernie to come in with him to check the trap, to do something that really mattered. But he knew Jeannie well enough to know that once he got this mad, it was best to just wait it out until it passed. Saying something could mean a karate chop, but Ernie wouldn't chop Tess. Okay, Ernie, we get it. You're not going, she said, which was interesting because that made Ernie stop saying it, just shut him down. It was like she performed some sort of southern reverse psychology that Jeannie had never witnessed before. He'd have to remember that next time he and Ernie got into it. Better yet, when he and Ma got into it. As they reached the base of the hill, Jeannie noticed that the front door of Tess's house was open. Tess, Jeannie said, your mother is doing something. Her mother was heaving a huge armload of clothes out onto the front porch, onto the porch. What now? Tess moaned, crossing the road, hopping over the ditch and running to the house. Ma, she called. Ma, what are you doing? Tess's mother dashed in and out of the house, each time returning with another armful of clothes, grunting and sweating as she tossed each bunch into a growling pile. Tessie, baby, I'm so glad you're here. Ever since I drove you over to the market today, I've been itching. I think it might be ticks or fleas or something, I don't know. But I know it was in my clothes. So I want you to take all of this stuff and check it closely. See if you see anything. See if I see what? Tess said, climbing the stairs wearily. I don't know, itchy things. Tess's mother disappeared back inside, Tess trailing her. Jeannie and Ernie waited at the edge of the porch, uneasy. Should they say go? Jeannie decided stay and sat down. Ernie, for once, played repeat. A few minutes later, Tess was back, her arms cradling at least 15 pairs of shoes. She dropped them between Jeannie and Ernie. Then, when she went back for more, she returned and dropped a load of dresses. So much for being healed, Tess griped. Remember, baby steps, Jeannie said. You want us to help? Ernie offered. Help what? Help pretend there's something wrong with her clothes? Ernie was stuck. If you want. Tess's frustration slowly turned into a quivering laugh. Then she shook her head like even she couldn't even believe this one. I'll be right back. There's only a few things left, and then we'll pretend to check for bugs or something. Jeannie looked at the garments next to him. Southern church lady clothes, fancy blue silk, the patterns, polka dots, stripes, weird designs, flappy collars and mismatched cuffs, and buttons, so many buttons. Triangles and squares and circles, yellow and green. Wait. This is the last of it. Tess dropped 5 or 6 dresses onto the pile. Then she noticed Jeannie with a jacket held up not 6 inches from his face. What are you looking at? Jeannie glanced up. Oh my, all over his face. This button. He turned the jacket around. It was all satiny, super dressy. It looked like one that cost a lot. And there were only 3 buttons on it. And those buttons were plastic, silver, shiny, with black trim. What about it? Tess asked. Ernie looked as confused as Tess sounded. It's the wheel of the truck. Shiny silver like the rim, black trim like the tire. What? Said Tess. Ernie leaned over. It is, it's so close, he cried out. The button looked like the wheel on the red truck. Not identical, but very similar. He filled in Tess, who just listened with a city boys look on her face. Then, as if it were no big deal, she grabbed the jacket, put the button in her mouth, used her teeth to nibble through the thread. Grinning, she spit the button out. She wiped it on her shirt, dropped it on Jeannie's hand. It's all yours. Really? She was giving it to him just like that? She wouldn't even notice it's gone, Tess laughed. Plus, this makes us even. The whole hypochondriac thing. Joking, hypochondriac. They didn't check the trap, and for once Jeannie didn't mind. At least he had a button. So that night, when Ernie complained to himself to sleep, Jeannie found glue, white glue, in the top drawer of the dresser. He applied 1 single drop to the button. Then he pressed the gluey button to the axle, sat it on his bed, and he held it there for what seemed like hours. Finally, he gingerly released his grip, and the wheel stayed put. Hallelujah! He'd finally solved one big problem. The truck was fixed. He wanted to run outside and scream it to the moon, to the stars. The truck was fixed. Instead, he lay in bed and dozed off with a grin. Now the only thing left hanging over his head was Operation Bird Nap. Okay, let's go into Schoology and answer some of those questions, and I'll ask you to think about what we read afterwards. Thanks.